Welcome to our video. Today we're going to talk about what the minimal requirements are to make a web page on a PHP web server. And basically, a web server is intended to produce documents that anybody in the world can go and read the document using a URL address to get to it. And HTML is a very forgiving language in the sense that even if you don't, we're looking at an example of what you are, I'm going to put this in quotes, supposed to have in your document to be a valid HTML document with the doc type HTML, the begin HTML, the begin body, and then whatever PHP code we want to throw in between, and then the slash body and the slash HTML. But I wanted to show you something so that you are understanding all of this stuff came from many years ago, and it's basically all the web browsers of today do their absolute very best to display whatever you put in a web page file, even if it's not valid, if it's not the correct way to do things. And there's certain tricks that you can use to put things in that will make your life easier. So the first thing I wanted to do was to show you a file that I put together. I copied a page worth of data off of the php.net website, which is all their current news releases. And I just pasted it into a file called class000.php. And so it's all sitting in here, and you can see that it's all formatted in the paragraphs. It doesn't have any word wrapping on it, but every single word, every single character that I copied is in here. And now if I display that in my web browser, and we will do that presently, this is what it looks like. And you'll notice it has every single word, every single character that was in the original text. However, there are no breaks for the paragraphs or the different lines, and everything is all jumbled up together. So this is what HTML does on the web server, is it takes whatever you gave it and it tries to display it for the user in whatever way, shape, or form that you wanted to do. And what I started to do was to go and look at that information and to format it a little bit. And I went in and put in the doc type, the HTML, and the body. And then I put some line breaks at the beginning, and I put paragraph markers for every paragraph that there is, just so you could see what happens when you go through and you add a little bit of HTML coding to just a text document. And then this is what it looks like. And that makes it a little bit easier to read and to follow through. And it still does the word wrapping on the long lines for you automatically. And if you resize the window that it's sitting in, it would rewrap it in real time to whatever the width and height of your screen is. And then it has the ability to scroll up and down through whatever it has in there. And I threw in a little bit of a bold printing up here on the top line, and just to make it look a little bit nicer. But that's basically And you'll notice that we get down to the end and it does not complain about not having certain things. And I purposely did a body tag at the beginning, and you'll notice there is no slash body tag at the end. But HTML does not complain about anything like that. It just makes the assumption that that's the body, and therefore you didn't put that in, so the whole thing is the body. And it does a lot of things for you and makes it very, very easy for you to deal with. And if you make a mistake, you're probably not ever going to know that you made a mistake. The other thing it does is it looks for anything with these angle brackets on it. So if I go in somewhere up in here and put in an angle bracket and call this my stuff with an angle bracket in it, and I save that, and then I reload the page, you will see that my stuff does not appear anywhere in here because it sees that angle bracket and it thinks that that's a tag of some sort, and it doesn't recognize what it is, so it just says, well, I don't know what it is, but it must be a tag that I don't know about, and it does not display it on the screen. So if you make a mistake in the HTML part of all this stuff, you really don't have a lot to worry about, because as you could see all through all this, you can have no HTML tags, or you could have incorrect HTML tags, and things will still be displayed on the screen. And HTML is not something that you're really going to need to do that type of finding errors with. What you will be finding errors with is formatting, and that comes a lot later. We're not going to get to that today. Today we're going to look at, now that we know that part of everything, we're going to look at a example that I set up here. And I set up 3 examples. I'm going to create a zip file for you to be able to download the whole thing and look at all the code yourself. And you can play with it and see what you think of everything. This is called Class 01, and it just says on the screen today is Friday 8/30/24, and the time is 2:06 p.m. And if I go into my source code here and I look at this, this is the code that I wrote to make all that work, and I put in HTML remarks in here to give you an idea of what all the pieces are that you can use as a little reference for yourself. And so here starts the PHP, and I put in here to set the default time zone. I'm in the East Coast time zone, so I chose America, New York as a time zone setting. And then I said, and if you forget to do this, you will get Greenwich Mean Time, which is basically whatever the date and time is in Greenwich, England. So that'll be about 5 hours off from current time. But then I put in this to echo today is the date formatted with the day of week, the month, day, and the year, and do a line break, and then the time is, and put in the time, which is the hours, the minutes, and AM and PM. So, and all these things are listed on the php.net website, and you can search for the different functions just by the name of the function if you want to. And I put in a couple of links in here, so now we'll get you more. So this is basically, you just throw in code between your HTML processes that you're doing, and that can be the way you do things for quite some time, learning all the different pieces of PHP and how they all work together, and get accustomed to doing that. And it's as simple as this. And if you miss something here, and I will show you what happens if I take out a quotation mark right here, and now I say reload this page, it tells you now we're doing PHP, and PHP does not allow you to do something with an error in it. And it says it was expecting something in here on line 12. And if we come back and we look at line 12, we see that we took out the quote on the line 11, which caused line 12 to malfunction. So if I put that quote back in there and resave it and come back here and reload, the error is gone. So as you're doing this, you'll evidently run into issues like that, and you just have to kind of like try to figure it out as to what you did wrong. I find the easiest thing to do is to take things and break them up into multiple lines so that you're not dealing with something wrong with line 12. And you don't know what it is. What on earth did I break now? And it does not take much. PHP requires that if you're going to have a string being used in a function, it has to be started with a quotation mark. The string has to be there, and then has to end with a quotation mark. In PHP, you could use the double quotes or the single quotes to separate the string from the rest of the line. Every line has to end with a semicolon. And then, you have to put spaces between your commands and the pieces that it uses, or you have to use rounded braces to separate out parameters being sent to the function. So this function is date default time zone set, and we are passing it with single quotes America/New York, and that could be double quotes. That wouldn't matter one way or the other. So you have your own particular way that you would like to do things, which you grow into, and then as you do that, it becomes pretty interesting, and you learn from it. And some people will use single quotes in one place and double quotes in another place. And a lot of these were just copied from the documentation on the php.net website. So this is your bare bones, your basic. I'm going to put some PHP inside my web page and make my page different than it used to be by using something that the server knows that the web page does not know. The web page does not have any idea what day it is and what time it is, but the server does. So by doing this, I'm taking the information on the server and putting it out in a format that then looks like this. So then what I did was I took that and I said, well, the next level of programming that I learned to use was setting up functions. So in here, this is the same program. It gets the same results, but I'm using a function to create the string that it's going to show on the show date. And so I have a function show date, and then within that I do the same things that I did inside the code of the previous version of our example, and I set up local variables where the weekday is the date formatted with the letter L, which gives you the weekday of the current date, and then the date, which gives you the month, day, and the year. And you notice that the Y in year is capitalized and the month and day is lowercase. And what that does is it tells month and day, if there's a leading zero, do not show it. And then on the year, with being a capital letter, it shows the 4-digit year rather than the 2-digit year. And again, all this is documented very nicely in PHP.net. Take a look, and it's pretty amazing all the things that you can do. And then the time is also a date function where you take new parameters. G is the hour of the day, but it's only 1 through 12. It does not do 13 through. It's not a 24-hour clock using the G. And the I is the minutes, and that's because M was used for month, so they couldn't use M again. So they used the second letter in minutes to specify to use the minutes. And then you have A, which is AM or PM for the current time. And then all that thrown together, we take a variable called result and we pass it in a string today is, and then we concatenate weekday, date, and the time is, and the time. And the dot is what separates the concatenation, which says add these things together, concatenate them with each other so that it becomes one string that says today is Friday, etc. And then it returns that result when it was called. And then by saying outside the function, we now have one line of code, which is echo show date paren. And that does all the work inside the show date function, and it shows on the screen what it was returned. And that makes it pretty simple. And then what I did was I went on to the next phase, which this is what all PHP stuff does nowadays, is we have object-oriented programming, and here we set up a class. Our class is called DisplayDate, and that does all of our work. We have a function in here which is the same basic code as what was in the function on the previous version. However, we have a this dash angle bracket weekday rather than just a $sign weekday. And that is to say that this weekday is part of this particular class. And what that does is it makes it, by making all these private, then nothing I do down here can break the code of what I put inside my class. And then we have dd equals new display date, which takes all this code and puts it into a function called dd. And then we say echo dd show date, which displays the result of that particular function. And you'll notice that within this, I used a local variable here called result, and we return that local result so that you don't have to do a private for result to do the show date in your function. So this is a neat little trick that I learned some odd years ago that makes it a little bit simpler, that you can have local variables within your classes and not have to worry about them, because you set up a local variable and you use it, and then you can forget about it because it doesn't exist when you go on to the next line of code. So that is the evolution of PHP, and today we have the classes that we can now incorporate into any program that we want to do, and we can have an include file. And I did this a couple weeks ago with you guys, and by including a file, then you can have 3 lines of code that include multiple files, and then you can have a short little bit of code that actually uses what's written in those other files. And then how much stuff you have to deal with your brain at any one time gets to be a lot less, and it gets to be a lot more organized. And I think the next class we're going to talk about putting in very good remarks. Now I put in remarks into here to help you guys learn a little bit about what is going on with everything. Here's the link to setting the local time, which I threw into here. So I'll make you a zip file that you can download for this, and I'll throw it in the comments of this video. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you get something out of it. And I'll see you on the next video. Have a great weekend.